today's topic. And with us in the studio this afternoon is Mr. Kengafe Ernest. He is the Continental President of the Africa Patriotic Youth Council Movement. Hello, Mr. Kengafe, and thanks for joining us on the program.
It's a pleasure to be here to discuss issues that have to do with the citizens of Africa, and it's a pleasure to see that we contribute our own view to see that our citizens go through these hard times and come out victorious.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kengafe. And in the minutes ahead, we shall be listening to him, and he's going to throw more light on today's topic. Today's topic. And in the minutes ahead, like I earlier mentioned, our numbers will be put on the screen. But before we start taking your calls, let us get this report done for us by Emanuela Nyoki-Sade on the impact of lockdown in the different African countries as concerns the COVID-19 pandemic.
Many African countries have introduced lockdown in order to halt the spread of the coronavirus. But some experts think ordinary people have to be involved in choosing the solution that will work for them. Countries on the continent have learned much from
today's topic, and like I mentioned earlier on, together with us this afternoon is Mr. Kengafe Ernest, and he is the Continental President of the Africa Patriotic Youth Council Movement. Coming back to you, Mr. Kengafe, what are your general thoughts as concerns lockdown in Africa, and what more can this African government do to make it right? Because there are a lot of complaints coming up as concerns this lockdowns. Many people, especially those who go out on a daily basis to cater for their families, they are complaining of going hungry.
Yeah, it's a big problem, and I also see lockdown is a good measure to overcome the COVID-19 spread. But it's also a good measure when you have alternative ways put in place by the authority in place to see that you do not impose lockdown, and at the end you have worst as you expected. Because if you put a lockdown and there are no alternative measures to see that the common man on the street or is getting access to basic necessity to make a living, is also a big problem. So my concern in that area is that governments that are implementing lockdown measures, they should also copy from other countries that are implementing lockdown and what they have done before implementing lockdown. You can take, for example, in US, the budget that was raised before the implementation of lockdown. It was to see that as they implement the lockdown, there will be possibility to provide a basic necessity for the citizen to be able to see that they are not in the wrong, that is in the worst aspect or the worst scenario. So to me, I will encourage the African government to also adopt such measures, because I have also witnessed a lot of citizens crying that they are not being able to go to the market to do this, to get their daily activities, and they don't also have money to get food for their families. So if a government is implementing such a measure, it should also put in place some possibilities like we have seen. We have to also appreciate those governments in Africa that have taken some positive aspect, like the Rwanda and the Senegal government, that they have also shown us some possible ways that when you are taking a decision, you should accompany your decision with possibility of sustaining that decision. That possibility of sustaining that decision is accompany your decision with basic necessity to share to this common man, so that by the time the common man is feeling that I'm supposed to have gone to the farm today before I have food, but now I have food, and I have been told by my government to stay home so as to prevent the spread of this virus. It will go a long way to give them comfortability to respect this lockdown. But if you just give an announcement that there is a lockdown, and at the end the problem is definitely affected by the common man, it is not going to be effective, and there is no way you will be able to contain that.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kengafe. But now the question is, the question I even meant to ask before is Africa really ready for a lockdown? Is Africa ready? Because I want to believe some African governments are embarking on a lockdown because they have seen other countries embarking on a lockdown. So are these countries that embark on lockdown without accompanying measures, what is in the minds of the leaders of this country?
Now, when they ask if they are ready, I can say they are not ready, because if you see, the possibility of being ready is putting in place what we have just discussed. Like, you have to make the citizen to know that as you are being stopped from carrying out your daily activities, this is an alternative way out. So if these measures are not put in place and communicated to the citizens, it is not a way to confirm that they are ready. Because, for instance, if you see the transport in some countries, especially Cameroon, the transport has been increased. The transport fare in taxi and urban transport has increased. So now the common man is the one suffering. And now if the government has issued a lockdown or restricted the number of persons carried in transport agency, but now reduce the price of the petrol, which is the common something that the drivers, all the drivers will do for transportation. I think that would have been the best way out to enforce this decision. Now the transport fare is doubled and tripled in some areas. Who is suffering? The common man. So how do you expect the common man to think about such a decision? So that is why we said that any decision that is taken without proper alternative measures is not a long-lasting decision.
Now, there are some governments, like we mentioned in the introduction early on, there are some governments where the security agents, they are actually enforcing these measures with a lot of brutality. For example, in Nigeria, the human rights body is talking of the Nigerian security agents who have killed 18 people through their means of enforcing these lockdown measures, and that's the figure is quite higher than the number of people who have actually died of the disease. What are your thoughts on that?
My thought on that is that the blame goes to the leaders of the country, because you are the authority of that country, and if you are not taking proper measures, like we have seen, if, for instance, perhaps these numbers would have been reduced if their leaders are taking daily briefing to find out what is done on the field today, how is it improved. They would have discovered that these mistakes are going on, and they will be able to correct it immediately. But if you keep it for so long, for more than 1 week, your citizens are not able to listen to you, address them. How do you expect them to, or the leader will be not be able to get the proper information to caution the security forces not to carry out such brutal measures? So the fault goes back to the leaders who are not able to carry out such daily briefing or get to know what is happening on the ground.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kengafe. We already have our first caller on the line, Mr. Photo Brian, calling us all the way from Nigeria. Hello, sir, and thanks for joining us on the program. Hello, if you are on the line, you are on air, go ahead with your contribution.
Other countries are providing for their citizens. The kids in Nigeria will only get figures. And take, for example, the case of Cameroon. Cameroon is, the cases are increasing day and night, day and night, day and night. And there are no measures being taken. We hear of this, that, and nothing is being done. No lockdown. Take, for instance, the major city
populated areas with high unemployment and poverty levels.
Welcome back. That's a report from South Africa showing how some South Africans are trying to cope with the lockdown that was imposed by the government a few weeks back, and some of them, they're complaining of the fact that staying at home is not going to put food on their tables. Coming back to you, Mr. Kengafe, from the report we just watched, that's just a cross-section of what most Africans on the common man on the streets are going through. So what would you say about that? What more can the government do? Because even in countries where the government is struggling to provide for the citizens, it is not always enough. People are still always having that urge to want to go out.
Yeah, the problem, you have to also look at the continent where we are, and also look at how our leaders have been operating before coronavirus and see if they really deserve to be appreciated with their formulas that they have been using previously to tackle other challenges. And this is why some youth are saying that they are more afraid of their leaders and their government more than coronavirus, because a lot of them have been going through a lot of torment, and the leaders are not responding to them. And now there is a crisis that is affecting the world, and yet leaders are just taking verbal decisions without accompanying the decisions with proper actions and support that will really make a common man to appreciate the decision. That is why I think it is not a welcoming idea that the leader will just make a decision without seeing that the decision is accompanied with some resources that will enable the citizen to see a need to accept or respect such decisions. So I still call on our leaders to reflect and see that these common people, they don't have any, a lot of them, their jobs have been affected, their family need food, they have a lot of challenges. And being as a government, I think there are there must be resources for emergency situations like this. You cannot claim not to have funding, or what about the present funding that has been distributed or contributed by local citizens to help fight it? The citizens need to also know and get the account how it is being managed, because a lot of people are even complaining that since the outbreak they have not seen how these funds have been properly managed. And so they are questioning that if a country is aware of support from out, maybe $1 billion, which is equivalent to at least entitled each citizen for a small country, each citizen should at least feel the presence of or the impact of that donation, maybe by just having 1,000 francs. That will go a long way to create awareness and give confidence to the citizen that they have some connection with their leaders. But now, if you don't see these things and you don't see any proper action, no food distribution, no allowance, healthcare distribution, nothing. So how do you expect a common man to feel? He's still left behind without any possibility of meeting up the daily challenges.
Now, when we go to Kenya, we heard of a stampede as a result of the fact that people were struggling to get foodstuff. Raila Odinga provided, that's in the Kibera slum in Kenya, he provided some foodstuff, and people were fighting to get foodstuff, and there was a stampede, and so several people were injured. They were even talking of some supposed 2 deaths. So what explains the fact that you have people rushing to collect foodstuff like this? Doesn't mean the government did not disburse enough for people to take care of themselves during this period of curfew?
Definitely, I think that is the case, because if you know that a community is made up of 20,000 inhabitants, and then you are coming with 10 bags of rice, what do you expect people to do? They would definitely fight, because each of the 20,000 will want to get a share of the 10 bags of rice, and therefore you are creating more chaos than trying to resolve the problem. That is what I think our African politicians are still, even in this moment, trying to politicize the coronavirus issue for their political gains, which is not something that we as young people should appreciate. We want to see genuine effort to help the local man on the street to survive during this terrible time.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kengafe. We take more callers. Our second caller on the line, Mr. Yu Innocent, calling us from Kumba in the southwest region of Cameroon. Hello, sir, and thanks for joining us on the program.
Hello, Laurencia. I am Innocent Yu in Kumba. Good afternoon to you. Good afternoon to viewers of Afrique Media. Now, let me just clearly put it in a very short term. Africans are not set for lockdowns. Africans are not set. Some African nations have taken the cue. They have moved ahead. Some are taking the cue, but you don't go shutting down a nation blindly. That's the truth. Shutdown is a perfect way of quarantining affected.
Thank you so much, Mr. Muki Emmanuel, for contributing on the program. Coming back to you, Mr. Kengafe. this African government, is it that some of these governments are not up to the task to provide accompanying measures as concerns this lockdown so that their citizens can be at ease? And if that be the case, can the government not solicit help from, because I know there could be some willing patriots of the country who want to help out during such decisions. And for example, like your organization, I think your organization is embarked on such kinds of issues. What can you say about that?
Yeah, I think the authority of the country is the first authority to listen to, and if they are weak, definitely any other organization or partners will feel discouraged to push forward maybe proposals that could help overcome the spread of the COVID-19. That is why I think that the government, and this thing has really come to expose weak government that do not have the temperament to be called a government. Now you have the real crisis that is a test of how leadership looks like. And today we are discovering who real leaders are and who fake leaders are. So this thing has really come to like expose those kind of situations, that problems that we local citizens have been crying for so long. But nothing has ever come up like this that the world is really focusing on, to really see how now most of these leaders have been exposed, and some unfortunately have not been able to give proper briefing to their citizens to be able to make them feel that they elected a leader and the leader is responding to them in time of need.
Now, if actually the government is not taking these measures to accompany the lockdown or the curfews that have been put in place, does it mean that some of these organizations of goodwill cannot walk up to the government and bring up their proposals, even if the government is not doing what they expect?
I think most of the government in Africa, politically, they will want to politicize the issue, even when it comes to at the detriment of citizens. They will still want to politicize the issue, because this is a situation where you don't need to see your political views as a major point to be considered. You have to consider the life of the people, first. Now, concerning your question, you know, leaders, if you come in now to support, they may think that after the effect, you will be people will regard you as someone who chip in the greatest effort to overcome the spread of this, and you will become more victorious, or more, you will be admired better than the government or the regime in place. So this is a very technical issue, but unfortunately in developed countries, they don't look at things like that. When citizens are going through a hard period like this, they always come together to find out reasonable solutions to overcome it. But in Africa, we politicize it, and at the end, the local man on the street are the ones suffering. So that is why our organization, the African Patriotic Youth Council Movement, which is in over 36 African countries today, is mobilizing in our local communities and getting to, because another thing that we have discovered is people are not well informed about this COVID-19 and the dangerous and the danger,
especially those in the suburbs,
and those in the suburbs who does not even watch TV. We need to form a committee to walk down to the street, educate people on how to use their PPE, the personal protective materials. We give them that education, because another thing is, if you are not informed, you will not be able to act, and that is why our government should also assist this thing that we call fighting. If the government is genuine enough, the citizen will genuinely assist them in the fight of the COVID-19.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kengafe. We will come back to you. Let's first of all get this caller on the line, Mr. Mark, calling us from China. Hello, sir, and thanks for joining us on the program. We have just a few seconds to the end of the program. To your final conclusions, Mr. Kengafe, what can you say generally about this lockdown on the continent?
I want to sincerely say that the government should critically look at their decision, because if you impose lockdown, and as it is now, some citizens are paying charges as a result of coronavirus instead of receiving support from their government. So the government should rethink and make proper supplies to their citizens if they want to implement lockdown. And also regarding the APYCM as the continental leader, I wish to say that we as African Patriotic Youth Council movement, we are advocating for African solutions to African problems, because we believe that this COVID-19 has come, and we have seen young people coming up with innovations that could help fight the COVID-19. But unfortunately, the government of several countries are not supporting these innovations from young people, which could as well help them, because like in Morocco, they started the production of ventilation, and the production has gone to the level where they have to start exporting. You know that this COVID-19 has come to create a lot of financial and economic damages to a lot of government. And so these young people are coming up with innovations, and the government is, instead of using some of this running budget to fight coronavirus to support these ideas, it will help a long way. That is why we continue to advocate for African solutions for African problems as African Patriotic Youth Council movement.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kengafa Ernest, the Continental President of the Africa Patriotic Youth Council movement. We want to thank you so much for taking out time to join us in the studio this day. We want to thank you for your presence, and we also want to thank all those who took out time to participate on the program. Your opinion always counts as concerns the issues that are affecting the continent. So thanks also go to technicians for touching the buttons to make the program a successful one. Another edition of the program comes up on Tuesday at 14 hours GMT. For another interesting topic will be yours that day. Do not miss out. Until then, you have a lovely weekend in the company of more programs on Afrique Media.
Nous arrivons désormais chez vous à travers de nouvelles coordonnées et un signal haute définition pour une qualité de réception inédite. Et pour nous recevoir, pas besoin de bouger votre parabole. Faites juste entrer la fréquence 12541 et le symbole RAY 12500 sur le satellite Amos pour recevoir un signal merveilleux de la télévision panafricaine, même en temps de pluie.
Afrique Média, le monde, c'est nous.
Hello?
Hello, you're on the program. Good day to you, sir.
I very appreciate it. I very appreciate all what you are talking about it. Good day and good day to all the viewers of Afrique Media. Thank you, Afrique Media. Thank you for what you are doing. Thank you, Africa.